Hello, everybody, and happy Saturday, and welcome to my stream. Um, Hello, everybody who is returning. My camera is being a little bit wonky, so I may have to pause at some moment to take care of that um, if it acts up again. But yeah, if you're new to my stream, welcome. Let me introduce myself. My name is Jules. My pronouns are he, him, and every single Saturday, except for last Saturday, and I'll explain my absence in a minute. For those of you who weren't able to get my secret message that I sent out, every single Saturday we sit here for an hour and a half, and we plan, or you journal, or you do your art, whatever. It's for an hour and a half, and we chit chat about our weeks and about what's coming up and what we're watching and what we're reading and all that good stuff. So this week, what I'm doing is I am planning for this upcoming week. Let me know if you're watching. Let me know in chat what your plans are. And I plan in a Jibun Techo, and I think because this is getting complicated. I'm almost at the point where I'm gonna have to pull out the diary, and start doing actual planning, not in the cover. So let's see. Let's catch up. Last weekend, I hopefully people kind of, if you have notifications turned on, and this is why, if you subscribe, you should hit that notification bell and for all notifications, because last Saturday I had to cancel the stream because I woke up with a migraine, and I was hoping that it would resolve itself by the time that my live stream was to happen, but it didn't. So I had to update the title for my stream last weekend with I'm going to be canceling the stream because of a migraine, and hopefully people who subscribe got that notification, so they at least got some type of warning that I was going to be MIA because bad migraine. Sometimes that's the thing about my migraines is normally, well, it all depends on what the trigger is, but they don't always blindside me in the morning. Hello, Anomic. Oh, thank you for Anomics congratulating me on 100 subs. Yes, thank you. That's another thing. 100 subs is a nice little milestone. I'm almost tell all your friends so I can get to 1,000 subs and be able to have the community tab. I think that's when you're allowed to have the community tab, so that when I have to cancel live streams for things like migraines, I am able to do so without having to send secret messages via updating the title of a stream when the live stream notifications the stream's gonna happen in 30 minutes. And so so that's what happened. 1,000 subs is great. Where's my pen? Right here. So how was everyone's last 2 weeks? What are you doing today? Reset, I'm planning. I didn't spend much time in my planner this past week, and I have to do some backfilling, which doesn't really happen all that often, except for when I get engrossed in a project, which I am right now. Yesterday I broke the 15,000 word mark in my work in progress in the book that I'm writing, which is pretty good for having just started it 2 weeks ago, and I'm already a quarter of the way done. So I'm a little bit behind schedule because I've been having a lot of migraines the last few weeks, and sometimes I don't know if it's because I'm sleeping funny, or if my diet isn't like the perfect mix of fat, carbs, and protein to stop my blood sugar from plummeting because I have hypoglycemia, which is like I sometimes will overproduce insulin and my blood sugar will crash after eating if I do not have enough fat and protein and have too many carbs. Like, and by too many carbs, I mean like a normal, like for a normal diet. Um, so sometimes I will wake up with migraines because my blood sugar is just doing crappy things, or it could be for any other number of reasons. But yeah, and what else? So this past week, I should have. Oh, I did keep it out. This last week, because we didn't get to plan together last weekend, I had the appointment with the anesthesiologist at the pain clinic. And I was kind of really hoping that they would have some magic injection. Okay, so let me back up here. Sorry. For people who are not aware, it's not cancerous. It's a benign tumor, but it is, like, not without causing problems. I have a spinal cord tumor that is, like, there's a, I can't think of the technical name, but, like, the shorthand name of it is the horsetail nerve bundle. Roots is basically all the nerves that run down from your back to your legs and control your bladder function and numbness and everything below the waist is like controlled in this nerve root bundle that is like kind of looks like a horsetail. And I have a tumor that is like basically sitting on where the sciatic nerve branches off, and it's displacing this nerve root bundle. So it causes, there's a lot of nerve pain, and not just like, think of sciatica, but on steroids. And I also am starting to have permanent paralysis in my feet and a few other places because of it. But because I'm not losing bladder function or anything yet, they don't want to operate on it. Because to remove it, there's a really good chance that it would end up causing my sciatic nerve to have to be severed, which would cause a bunch of other mobility problems. It's like, is the cure worse than the symptoms type thing? But it causes a lot of disruption. I can't stand for long periods of time because the standing aggravates the nerve, and then all of a sudden, like, I live about a 7 or an 8 with pain, and if I do things that that cause that nerve cluster to be in motion, which is basically standing because you're on the balls of your feet, which sends signals up your sciatic. Basically any movement that involves gravity causes it to be aggravated. But I'll be at my normal 7 or 8 and managing that just fine. And I'm like saying everything is interconnected, yeah. So I'll be like at 7 to 8 and everything will be like fine. 7 to 8 doesn't sound fine to a normal person, but when you're living with chronic pain, like 7 to 8 is where I live and I manage it fine-ish. And then all of a sudden, because it's been aggravated, and it seems like between 10 to 15 minutes is the maximum I can stand or move before I have to sit down, and that's why I'm a wheelchair user, and that's why I have a whole bunch of mobility aids. It's like, sometimes it's like, and sometimes it's not predictable, but normally it's like 10 to 15 minutes, and if I do not sit and get off my feet, but then that causes it to be aggravated in a different way. But if I do not sit, what happens is that the pain becomes blinding, like it just all of a sudden screams, and I lose all function below the waist, and I actually fall to the ground because I cannot hold myself up anymore. And we're not quite sure if it is because I am in so much pain, my body is like forcing me to stop movement, and not that it's actually being hurt, but just my body is like, you need to like sit down now, because either that or you're going to pass out because of the pain, and so I'm going to force you to sit down and stop moving, or if there's an actual paralysis that is happening, because my sciatic and that nerve root that's being displaced is being aggravated to a point where it's causing like more and more damage. Can't say for sure with these things. So I was hoping, since surgery is not an option at this point, it may become an option in the future, but it isn't at this point. I was hoping that the anesthesiologist, who's the pain specialist, would be able to give me some type of magic injection or something in that nerve root bundle to be able to, like, basically tell my spinal cord to, like, chill the F down and stop being such an ass. Well, that is not possible, and I didn't think it would be, but you never know, because they do some pretty amazing things with anesthesiology and spinal cord injections and all this other stuff, but no. I just am so lucky that I have, it's called I can't remember, schwannoma, I think is the name, and they happen often in, like, the nerves around your ears and your head, and those ones are normally pretty operable. The ones in where I have it are extremely rare, and more often than not, they're not operable without causing permanent paralysis. Like leg loss of function. So, which I think, you know what, not being able to walk ever may be actually better than this pain, and I think it's like being paralyzed and thinking that's the worst thing in the world, I think is a very ableist thing, but that's how these doctors think. They think, I guess because they have to stand all day to do surgery, they can't think of, for them, they can't think of anything worse. And I'm like, I can think of a lot of things worse, but who knows. Anyways, so no magic injections. However, he is, and he's the only one who can prescribe it, or an anesthesiologist at the pain clinic. But there is an experimental medication that they are using in MS patients and some other things, and it's actually like it's low dose naltrexone. This is gonna sound like a talk to your doctor if low dose naltrexone is right for you. No, that's not what this is. And I'm not giving medical advice, but basically naltrexone is the same thing as Narcan. And I'm like, wow, that is a hard spot. Yeah. I wish Quadus Equina or something like that it's called. Anyways. And there's a syndrome. Like, if it gets irritated too much, there's an actual syndrome associated with it that can happen with things like bulge discs and whatever. So low-dose naltrexone, which is an opiate antagonist. It stops the effects of opiates from being able to work, and is what you like to use. It's basically Narcan, but it's in the same family as Narcan, not the exact same drug, but the same family. And so low dose of that, and over time, what it can do, it's still experimental. The studies are still like, we don't know. We don't even quite understand how the mechanism works. But over time, it kind of, it stops your brain from producing specific signals that are related to nerve pain. And that these signals get fired off in patients who have MS, who have these specific types of spinal cord tumors, nerve root tumors, and it takes like 2 weeks to a month before you start building up. Like, its effect builds up over time, and it could be 2 weeks to a month before I start feeling any of the effects. And we're starting off with a 90-day dose to see how that goes. and hopefully, like, I will still have, we're hoping that I will no longer have the episodes where the pain gets so bad that my legs crumple out from underneath of me, and that even I may still need to use mobility aids and whatever, but hopefully it will just make the pain that much more manageable. We don't know. And then he, that's the only thing he can prescribe because it is experimental. And then he is sent off a list of a bunch of different anticonvulsant medications that also work on like signals that can cause specific types of seizures. And it also works with nerve pain. That for my GP to prescribe to me to try these anticonvulsants. Yeah, and I'm saying that they hope it helps, and I hope it helps too, because I've been living with chronic pain for so long, it doesn't depress me. I've learned to manage it to a degree, but it still interferes with my life in really bad ways where I cannot really plan for anything without having to do really big like physical, like how long am I going to spend in bed afterwards. When I have like client work as an example, like I have to plan everything that is not a photo shoot for a client day in such a way that I know that when I do have client shoots, they are absolutely going to kill me, and I'm going to end up paying for it for at least a week afterwards. But at least I know that I have my life managed in such a way that I can have that cost for the week afterwards, which really isn't the best way to like I would like to be able to just spontaneously decide, oh hey, I would like to drive down to Victoria, and be able to spend the day at the museum and not have to spend and actually be able to enjoy it, because the hour, without the hour and a half trip sitting in the car on the way down there, without that killing me and causing me so much pain, because I can't sit for that long without having a big huge cost. So but I feel better. I feel better that, because my doctor, I like science too, so I agree with my doctor that there needs to be a good clinical, she's all worried about, so there's a lot of drugs that are no better than placebo when it comes to treating nerve pain, and it is really a game of trying sometimes maybe 100 different medications before finding something anywhere near effective or beneficial. And my doctor doesn't like prescribing things if it is no better than placebo. And so she, having the pain specialist say, you know what, we need to be throwing everything at this, and hopefully there will be something that works and allows me to wake up and feel rested, or wake up and not be like, oh, I'm sorry for my feet to hit the ground, because as soon as my feet hit the ground, I'm going to be in pain. Anomic is saying that they never think how much something can impede our daily life, things we take for granted. Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of times where people try and I don't know, there's a lot of ableism in this world where people are like, well, why can't you just go do that? I'm like, I don't think you really understand. When I say that my legs give out underneath of me, I'm not talking oh, I feel faint or weak and I need to sit down. It's they stop. working, and I crumple to the ground. And it's not fun. And it was funny, the week before last, we had like an orientation of all the services that are available to us at the pain clinic, and we basically get to pick and choose what we like, what services we want to avail ourselves of. And it was done by a physiotherapist, and the physiotherapist is like, oh, you cannot exercise, like, sometimes your pain lies, and you're never going to exercise to the point where it's going to cause, like, physical damage. And I couldn't say, okay, well, except for when you have hypermobility and a spinal cord tumor, that if you're not careful with how much you aggravate your your spinal cord tumor, if it gets tweaked the wrong way, it could literally, like, I could move or bend tomorrow in a way that is really bad and paralyze myself. And it was really, like, it was really difficult for me to be like, except for, like, I'm not here because of a workplace injury or recovering because of post-surgery pain. I'm here because I have a tumor on my spine and I'm hypermobile, and if I'm not careful, I actually dislocate bones. Or, like, dislocate sockets. They used to call it, like, when I was loose joints, right? Well, it's not really so much loose joints as in, it's like, and she's like, you guys all have to do yoga. I'm like, except for, if I do yoga, I will literally hurt myself. And I'm not supposed to do, hold on, I gotta cough here. I'm not supposed to do anything that could possibly hyperextend my joints, because I don't feel pain when my joints are being hyperextended, and I have very often dislocated them. So, I'm, like, have to keep to weights are safe, and very light stretching. And being autistic, and also, like, it's complicated because I have lack of interoception, I think it's called, where your body, can send signals and you don't hear them. Like, I often do not know I have to go to the washroom until it's, like, really, really too late. Well, not really, really too late, because that implies that I wet myself. Anyways, there's all these things that complicate it, where my body and my brain have mixed signals because of chronic pain, but then there's also mixed signals because of autistic things. And Anomic's like, when the cure is worse than the problem. Exactly. That's, and I'm like, normally if you have chronic pain, you're supposed to move, because if you don't move, then you stiffen up and you become more sore. And that is true in most cases, that light movement is really good, and it can help. And it also, like, you produce endorphins and all these things that are natural painkillers when you work out. And that is great and everything. But when they're giving, like, these mass orientation sessions, is like, except for when you have, like, repetitive strain things that actually make your condition worse, then no, movement is not the best. You need to rest. And because with some conditions, you can actually end up hurting yourself more. And one of the things that I found really not all that great was, like, during the orientation, I asked, like, do you have, because I've done so many of these different types of, like, I've done cognitive behavioral therapy and trauma therapy and yoga and stretching. Like, I've done all the things. I have really good mental health. That wasn't always the case, but now it is the case. I have really great coping strategies, so things like my OCD and complex post-traumatic stress do not take over. I'm pretty, like, I can't remember the last time I was anxious without having, like, a really good cause to be anxious. Like, generally just anxious is not a state I live at anymore. But what was I saying? Oh, anyways, yeah, so, but the only thing, like, but a lot of stuff that, they say is for neurotypical people, and I am not neurotypical. Like, I have so little awareness about how much force I am applying with my hands when I do things, that, like, I have a permanent, like, big, huge callus here on my thumb and an indent from holding my pens too tightly. I have snapped a garlic press, like the handles right off a garlic press, because I was apparently there was too much garlic in it, and I didn't feel that the garlic press was telling me that you know what, you should not be forcing this, you should stop. And so I just forced the garlic press so much that the arms snapped off the garlic press. So when you're doing that much force on a garlic press, you're damaging your tendons, but I don't feel it because of autistic things. It's the same thing I was doing, and this is why you have to be very specific sometimes with autistic people. I have resistance bands, and it's like I use an app called BodBot for my exercises, and it does adaptive exercises. And it was having me, like, I think it was like 13.5 kilos or something like that. 25 pounds, I think. No, 30 pounds. Pretty sure 30 pounds, maybe, was the band. And they're like, okay, we'll do this exercise and keep pulling. Or it was walking back, that's what it was. It was attached to my legs, and they're like, walk back until you feel resistance. So I'm just walking back, and I'm not feeling resistance, and then all of a sudden, the band breaks, and you know, what are they? They're like, you use the hooks, there's a special name for them when you're mountain climbing. It's like anyways. Metal came flying, and it could have taken out my eye, and but I didn't feel resistance, and so I'm just walking back, and there's no instruction, like, there's only so far you can walk back before you're probably going to, the force that you're applying to walk back is more than the force of the band, and you're gonna snap it. No warning. And so, yeah, I was just like, well, there's no force here, so I have to keep walking back. So, to tell an autistic person that don't worry, you're not going to bend so much that you're going to hurt yourself. Your body will, like, send you a signal and make you stop. That is not true of everybody. Carabiner, yes, thank you, Anomic. That is the word, the carabiner. So I have, the carabiner that was clipping the band to my wall was like, anyways, it was very potentially dangerous, and my partner is just like, I don't think you should do this anymore. And I'm like, no, I need to. Like, I enjoy exercising a lot. I just need to stop being so extra sometimes and pay better attention. Like, it's one of the reasons why I have a system to check in with my body 3 times a day. Because if I don't do that, if I don't take a few minutes to actually stop and listen to what really, really check in with what my body is telling me, then I do some pretty not so great things. Like, I end up paying for it. We'll just put it that way, because it's not bad. Like, bad is a moral thing. It's not ideal. I guess is the word we can use for that. So, yeah. Onomic is saying that their cousin has that in his feet and ended up driving through the garage wall because he couldn't feel the correct pressure. Yeah. It's it's one of those, and it happens quite often. And it's really scary for other people when they see it. Like, I've even, and it's not like I'm so strong. Like, there had to have been a microfracture somewhere in the glass. But I've even, I grip glasses so hard because I don't feel the pressure. But I was holding a glass one day to drink the things in the glass, and then all of a sudden the glass is, shattered in my hand, and there's, juice and stuff everywhere because I was squeezing on it so hard that the microfracture that existed, because it's not like I'm the Hulk or anything like that. It was enough to shatter the glass in my hand, and that's not supposed to be. I mean, that's not an easy task, even with a microfracture. So I just have to be careful, because I'm I'm not cautious. I don't exercise caution, and I'm just one to like leap into things. I mean, leap into physical activity things that I think are safe. Like I don't take risks. I'm not like skydiving and like X sports stuff. No, not that type of leaping before looking. I look before I leap, but I don't once I assess the risks and decide I'm not going to die by doing this, I don't have any restraint physically. I because there's no feedback. My body doesn't register feedback to let me know. Oh, hey, you know what? You maybe should back off a little bit on the pressure. So that's fun. That's interesting. I start the low dose naltrexone on Monday. So Namik is saying, in Smooth Criminal by Michael Jackson, he squeezes the cue ball until it explodes into dust. Yeah, something like it's that type of thing happens to me quite often, and it is. I mean, it's people who are new in my life and see something like that happen for the first time. It kind of like it's really scary, shocking to them. But even my partner, it was also our wedding anniversary the other week. That was fun. We both forgot about it, which is not bad. We're both aromantic. So it was one of those things that was like 10 minutes before midnight, and I noticed the day. I'm like, oh, shoot. We've been together. We're married now for 9 years. Happy anniversary. But it was, what was I? It's, even he still gets surprised about it every now and then, just because it's shocking. So this is my milk deadline, and so I'm curious, because we are catching up for 2 weeks, if there's anything that you have watched recently. We finished Stranger Things, and I'm looking forward to the final season, and I'm glad that I know it's the final season, because I don't know, the season was not as good as the other ones. I mean, it wasn't bad, and I enjoyed that it was a little bit more scarier. Like, there was a few times that it actually made me jolt. But I think I'm done. I've reached my I'm gonna be happy. Like, it's not wearing out its may just start to be wearing out its welcome. Oh wait, I think this weekend is the weekend that I shop. Let me check my months. Is it a shopping day? Well, we're on July. So yeah, we finished that. Oh, I did not put shopping days on here because shop. I don't know why. And shop. Ooh, yeah. So it is a shopping day. What else have we watched? We started watching the latest season of Only Murders in the Building, and we're enjoying that so far. We forgot though when we started it that it is weekly episode releases, which I don't understand them doing that if it's not airing on television. And normally when on shows that are streaming that are released weekly, we wait until the show is done before watching it. Like, we just also started watching Ms. Marvel, and that is such a sweet show. We're 3 episodes in, and God, she is so good. And I grew up I grew up immersed into a South Asian community, both like from Pakistan, Punjabi, Muslim South Asians, and Sikh, Punjabi, Indian, like from India, even though there was all one country, Punjabi, and I like the way that they're all the aunties and all the uncles, and it's just very, very much like the South Asian families with which I grew up. And I'm just loving it so much. Especially there was one Monomics thing that they haven't been watching shows. Just YouTube on moving abroad, packing list stuff, getting things sold, learning a language, etc. Yeah, that's a lot. But the thing, yeah, so there was one scene where, and this isn't a spoiler, but it's just like little details where I'm like, yep, that is exactly what it's like when you go to a South Asian home, especially from those who are here from either Bangladesh or Punjab or Pakistan, and you go to their home, and they're like, okay, I need to send you home with food, and you're like, no, and they're like, yes, I insist. And then, like, all of a sudden, like, they are out, and they have, like, this bag packed with, like, a week worth of food for you to take home. And, they're always, South Asian families are always waiting for somebody to come over so they can feed them and send them home with enough food to feed an army. And just the way that they portrayed it, and the friend is like, how do you do this so quickly? And it's like, it's like some, you have your ways and we have our ways. There was some comment like that, and just the way they did it was like, yep, that is exactly what it is like when you go into a northern South Asian home, and they always have food waiting, always. And I don't know how they do it. And anyways, it's just been very, very sweet to watch, and I'm glad that that it's over, that the final episode just dropped, and so we can now finally watch it. What else have we watched? I feel like, because I've been so busy working on my new manuscript, there's been some things that have been a blur. I've been also doing a lot of, like, comp, trying to find, so when you query a book, for people who don't know this, you're supposed to, in your query letter, list some titles or authors with the same type of thing that your book has. It's just so they know how they can market and place it on shelves and stores and all that stuff. The plates are all packed ahead of time. Yeah, exactly, Anomic. Except for this time, it was like takeaway containers. But it's always ready. They always have food ready to give to somebody, and it's always packaged and ready to go and cooked. So I've been listening to a bunch of YA books that deal with, like, on the heavier side, trying to find those magic titles, like, readers of so-and-so will enjoy my book. And it's been really hard, because the one book that I found that is kind of the same vibes, because my book is really vibey, Wacy, it's very character-driven, is The Perks of Being a Wallflower, in some ways, but that book is so old now, you can't use books, like, it has to be books within the last, like, no more than 5 years, but they prefer the last 2 or 3 years when you're querying your book to get an agent. And I've been having a really hard time finding books that are similar, because there's no romance in my book, and that's very intentional. It's a book about friendship and that type of love, and not romance. And the power of friendships, and the power of somebody accepting you and loving you unconditionally, your chosen family. And trying to find comps on that, because every single YA book, for the most part, has romance, like even in The Perks of Being a Wallflower, the lead character who's like the narrator, told in first person, they have a love interest, and that's who's with their like one of their closest friends. And so that's another thing I've been doing, is trying to find comps and borrowing a lot of audiobooks and stuff from the library. And it's been a little bit frustrating because it's like there's this whole thing like, if you can't find a comp, that means you're not reading enough. And it's like, oh no, I'm reading enough, but I know, because like there are only romances or tragedies. Yeah, and this isn't that. I mean, bad things happen to the main character in my book. But it isn't so much about the bad things that are happening and more about how he's able to get through it with the love of his best friend, and just it's like these two people who are still trying to find themselves and are kind of, they're not really outcasts, but they're, I mean, the main character is neurodivergent, so they're a little weirdo. And I mean that in the best way possible. And his best friend is a weirdo. There's a thing there's a situation, that, and the main character has to make a really difficult decision, and he keeps writing letters to his best friend, and he just casually drops some bad things that have happened to him, but he doesn't understand how bad they are because he grew up in an environment that was so neglectful and abusive that to the main character, it's just another day. It's just Tuesday. And still, like, because of different things, just does not understand just how WTF that's happening, but it's not about the WTF thing. It's about having to make, like, decisions that normally 17-year-olds don't have to make, and how the love of his best friend allows him to, for the first time in his life, make a decision because it feels right to him, and not because it's what people expect of him to do. No, because it's like, can you use self-published books as comps or no? No. It needs to be, unless it's something like The Martian that started off self-published and then went to be traditionally published, or like, it has to be, and yeah, unless it's like a self-published book, the rare self-published book that makes like the New York Times top 10 list, they do not want self-published books as the comps, which makes it difficult because there are a lot of self-published books that do feature aromantic love stories and aromantic characters, and that kind of stuff. So what I'm doing is I'm looking for not so much comparative titles that are like this, tackle the same subject matter, but have the same type of weight mixed with that breath and that sigh, that comfort you feel, like the friendship between Gordy LaChance and Chris Chambers in Stand By Me, when they're comforting each other, and Chris is like, I wish to hell I was your dad, because if I was your dad, you wouldn't be thinking that type of stuff. And has that same catch your breath as Heartstoppers, but without the romance. So I'm gonna be doing, like, for readers of these authors and these authors. Would The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan work? No, because that's not contemporary. Mine is more literary, and it's contemporary YA, so it has to be contemporary YA comps, and it has to be more in the upmarket. And I think I've narrowed it down to the author of the Heartstopper series as a comp, and maybe one other. Like, I'm doing it for people who like authors instead of the comps. And so now I'm having to read a lot of these authors, or listen to a lot of these authors' work, to make sure that feeling of equal weight of this feels really heavy and I'm anxious, and those moments of sadness mixed with just that 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 having your breath taken away just because of it's a vibe. And I'm not like saying they got it. It's very vibey, and it's really difficult to comp vibes. Um, it's really difficult to comp vibes, especially because you're not supposed to tell a reader how they're supposed to feel about it, right? So it's and whimsical is like not everybody has that feeling when they see the relationship between Gordy LaChance and Chris Chambers in Stand By Me. Or that, like, even that really warm feeling when seeing the friendships in Heartstopper. Because even though there is romance in Heartstopper, at its very core, Heartstopper is about those friendships and that unconditional support that they have for each other. And the author of the Heartstopper series has an older title that doesn't have romance in it, and that has that same feeling and has a little bit more weight to the conflict. So I'm going with that author. And yes, plus it could be a pioneer. Yeah. Yeah, so it's just one of those things where I'm doing that, and it's a little bit frustrating because it has to be right, and it has to be a comp that the agent that the agents that I pitched to, something that they are like, yeah, I like those authors, so yeah, I'm kind of interested enough in this book, aside from what they read in the query letter. I don't think I have anything this week. And then, what else? Oh, I should probably update you all on, I got this planned pretty quickly. I don't know what else we're going to be watching this week. I should backfill this week, now that we're here. So I was away on holiday for 2 weeks, and then my publisher, no, not my publisher, my editor was away, and for the week I came back, and so we had those 3 weeks where it was like, well, my manuscript's in, and what's next? So I emailed my editor on Tuesday, and I guess it was like really end of the day Wednesday. Yeah, it was like late Wednesday where she emailed me back, because when you're away on holidays. So the state of my manuscript is that the edits are locked. They have no questions for me while I was away. It was all finished up, and it is going, there's like 2 little thingies that they have to do with the manuscript before it goes off to design, and it went off to design yesterday, officially. So that is, yay. And next week, hopefully I will know when I will have samples of my cover options and interior design for me to give my feedback on and all the other stuff. So that's exciting. Also next week, I should be receiving for my records the design ready copy of my manuscript, which is I think it's really starting to feel real now. Yeah, so my design ready copy of my manuscript. That is great. And also beginning next week, they are now officially working on their creating their marketing plans for the spring 2023 releases, which means that also, in the next week or so, I will be meeting with the person who is doing the marketing plan for my book, and we get to sit down and start discussing everything marketing. Who wants to review it, my launch party, my book launch party, things like getting book covers printed so I can send off, like, the book plates to send off signed copies to people. So that's, yeah, we're now officially into that stage where it's like, oh, let's market your book and get that done. Or, like, start making the plans to market my book. So I'm excited. Oh, there's some dogs that might disturb us. Oh, Ziggy, go back to sleep. Yeah. So, that's exciting. Because I was really nervous while I was on holiday. Because 3 weeks is a long time. To be short in the publishing world is long in my life. Especially with how quickly this book has been moving through the process. To be away from it, and like me being on holiday, and then my editor being on holiday, and then both of us coming back to having to catch up on like just everything that you have to catch up on when you're away for a few weeks. So that was great. What else? There just seems like so much. Let me look at my... Nope, that's the wrong month. Yeah, I was a guest on a podcast, which was like a 3-hour long interview, and I don't know if anyone's going to want to sit through it all that long. And, but that won't be out until May of next year. Like, that's how far ahead. Like, I'm already doing, like, recording podcasts and stuff for book promotion for when it comes out. And then another nice thing that happened, was, so what I'm going to do with this book is I'm going to query it and see, like, what interest there is in it. And I got confirmation from my publisher that if I wanted to pitch it to them, that I can, and that because they started a literary fiction imprint a few years ago. On, like, normally they just do nonfiction food and lifestyle things, but a few years ago they've also branched off into doing fiction, but only literary fiction, and which my book, I'm having a really hard time deciding if my book fits, like, in upmarket, or if it is, because it is, like, pretty much character driven. It may also qualify for a literary, even, like, there are some very poetic language in it, but most literary fiction is, like, all about craft and poetry. Like, not literal poetry, but, like, flowery language. But my characters, no, it's this book has flowery language in some points, but it's not, it's more about the characters and less about the craft. It's just the weird space. It could be literary, because it is absolutely so character driven, and it very much has a point to the story. It tackles a subject. It's not genre fiction for sure, but it also isn't quite like 100% literary fiction though. So I don't know. The option's there. So I do have that option, and then there's always self-publishing as well. But what I'm hoping, and so I think I've had someone this past week. Like, I had an inquiry from a agency. Again, it's always like on the mainland for doing a shoot and whatever. But after talking with my partner, just because it affects finances, because of the topics that my book tackles and timing, and because I have this 2-month break before we go to the proofreading, after speaking with him, the decision was made, and especially because of how my brain works, and to make it less stressful for me in terms of managing my OCD, we have decided that I'm going to not actively seek out photography work for the next 2 months. I'm going to put a pause on, except for if I really need to do photography, because I need a mental health break from writing. I'm going to put a pause on my food days project. I may do 2 a month, but I'm not going to be doing 2 a week. I'm not doing any more for this month just because the rest are things that are like junk food or whatever, and I'm not really into shooting that stuff. And what we have decided is that I'm just going to focus on this book for the summer, and hopefully I have a critique partner, and the hope is that I can get it ready to query at the end of the summer. And I mean, we first joked, the joke was that I would have the book done by the end of this month, and because that's just, he's like, well, no, like, he first joked and said, no, you're not going to have this done by the end of August. You're going to have this done by the end of July. And then later he had to clarify that he was absolutely joking, because then my OCD was like, I'm going to stay up for days straight and get this book written. And he's like, no, I was not serious. Like, no, you still need to set work hours or whatever. But I'm for the next couple months, I guess a month and a half, we've decided that I'm just going to focus on getting this book done. I think part of the reason why he has agreed to this is I read him a chapter every time I'm done. Zooming along. Yeah, I am zooming along. I'm already a quarter of the way done. So I got a quarter of the way done in the last 2 weeks, and that was with how, like, I had to take a day off because of a migraine, and then I had, like, I had to take days off because of emergencies, like, with clients, and so we've just decided that, aside from if somebody approaches me because they want me to bid on a job, then yes, I'm going to bid on the job and do that. But I'm not going to do any outbound, like, marketing, like, actively try and search for clients right now. I'm just going to, the marketing that I've already done is the marketing that is going to be, like, yeah, if that makes sense. So I had an appointment this day, and it's this. So that feels good to have that support. And I don't think, I mean, it was really weird, because at first they were just a little bit hesitant about it. Not because of anything real. They have anxiety, and so their brain automatically always is like, well, what if this happens, or what if that happens, and then you're going to be disappointed that it didn't work, like, and then he has to tell his brain to stop, like, being in the doom and gloom. But after I read him the first chapter, he's like, no, you gotta finish this. And then every night, I'm right now, because my chapters are short, they're about 2,000 words each, so I'm averaging a chapter a day, and my outline has 27 chapters, and I have 8 chapters done. So that leaves 19 more chapters. So, and I'm not writing on the weekends. Weekends I'm doing some light editing and things that my brain is like, okay, this should be added. Um, but, yeah, so 8 chapters done, 19 more chapters to go. And I have some critique partners, and we're just I'm hoping I can get to a point where it's ready to query at the end of the summer or early in September before I go back into proofreading and doing the indexing for the cookbook. So that's my plan for this summer. And I also have to do some I was supposed to have this last Friday, but I didn't get it done. I have to make time this week to get the marketing copy for the How to Cook a Book course that I'm teaching at the Andrew Scrivani Academy, which that doesn't start until October. So that is that. That's my summer. Well, everybody's going away and doing whatever. I'm writing. So what happened this last week? That was the pain clinic, and then I think I did admin all day Tuesday. I have to check my email to see what was the day that I put the bid in for the job. This one email. I think it was. Let me go back. Load more messages. Oh, come on. Be this way. I wonder if I go to my sent. Oh, no, it was oh, yeah, that is Tuesday. Yeah. Tuesday. So, yeah, I wanted to write on Tuesday. That's what I mean. Tuesday, I was doing, admin all day Tuesday, putting in a bid. This past week, this seems, we're on the 16th? This seems like it was, 100 years ago that this was all, and that was, it was in the afternoon, yes. The morning was all dealing with a pain clinic. So admin, I have put in a bid that day. So yeah, Tuesday I didn't do any writing, and I still managed to get 4 chapters done this week. The week before last, I was dealing with some more client things, and so there was 2 days the week before that I didn't work. So yeah, I'm averaging. I'm working at a good clip, I think, doing a chapter a day. And I'm an edit as I go person. So I write my work. I let it sit. Sometimes I get it done by my afternoon break. Sometimes I spend the morning doing a lot of research. And it's really weird. Things that I'm researching are the book takes place over 1 month. And so there are some things where it's important to know what the weather was doing on specific days, because it is contemporary YA, so I have to search for specific things that were happening in specific things on the news that day for it to be reflected in the book. I'm also having to what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, I'm having to listen to a lot of music as research, because there's music is really important to the main character and their best friend, and they talk a lot about music. Music also helps my main character ground themselves, but they don't know that's what's doing, because they're 17 years old and they're in foster care. They don't have that self-awareness to know that's what's happening. But it's still, so I have to spend Some mornings or afternoons, I'm just for an hour and a half listening to music to find the perfect song to capture the mood that I want. That is like reflective of either what's happening in the book or what the main character is feeling, or yeah. So my process is pretty. So I'm done, and then I sit with it. I read it, reread it. I do some edits, and then I sit on it again for a couple days and let it percolate, and then I'm an underwriter, so I'm like having to think and like what else can I add to this chapter to beef it up without just adding words for the sake of adding words. So that's my process when it comes to this. And I'm looking for the word, like, not decompress. That is the word I am looking for. That's what I did after my pain clinic appointment. Decompress. Break. There have been a couple days, though, that even though I'm putting my break in like I would normally schedule it, there have been some days where it is fun research, yes, anomics. There are some days where I get to like 2 o'clock, and this is the thing, it's finding anomics, like, they write a chapter, then edit the next day, and then do a new chapter. Yeah, so our processes are pretty the same. There's like 2 wisdoms on this. There's the people who are like, you are supposed to write the whole entire book first, and then you go back to edit. And my brain cannot do that. I would never. I hate the editing process so much, and it's there's too many opportunities to go off the rails and lose the thread, and create plot holes if we're not editing daily, and making sure that the story is not opening up plot holes. Like, I almost created a plot hole the other day, put my characters in the situation, and I'm like, wait a minute, how did this happen? Like, so in the book, the foster parents took away the main character's cell phone and a whole bunch of other things. And it was like, okay, well, no, there still needs to be the ability for music to happen, because I already have it in my outline that the main character and their best friend are going to be talking about in letters that they write to each other, what music that they're listening to. But how can my main character be listening to music when they don't have their phone, and they have lost all access to basically the internet, unless they're using the kitchen or the computer that's in the kitchen where everyone can see what they're doing. And they're basically under house arrest for really bad reasons, like for nothing that they have done anyways. It's a situation, and I'm like, how my character needs to be able to listen to music. Music's important to the plot, and to understanding these characters, you need to understand what they're listening to, because music like that is, every teenager has music that they listen to that you know where the teenager is based on what they're listening to and what they're talking about as far as pop culture. You cannot avoid pop culture when doing contemporary YA. So then I remembered, oh crud, we have these things, these antiques, and I refer to it as an antique in the book, and it makes me so happy that I get to do this. And any person who is our age reading it are going to like, oh my god, I feel so old. But one of the foster parents, after taking away their phone, hands them a clock radio so that they can get up in the morning. And so with the clock radio, they have access to the local radio station that plays a mix of songs from the 1900s until now. So clock radio says antiques and bangers from the 1900s. And it just makes me so happy when I get to remind everybody who is not a young adult or like a teenager reading this book, like, we're old, you're gonna enjoy it. There's nods in it for older readers as well. That's why it's upmarket. but you're also going to feel really old when you are, and when it's in your face that a song that you liked when you were in high school is a song from the 1900s. And that phrasing is from a friend of mine's son who's autistic was asking her. I'm like, she was like, I need, come over here, A. I want you to listen to this song. And A's response was, this is another one of your songs from the 1900s. And I'm like, oh my god, that is perfect. That is exactly the type of thing that needs to be in my book. Wow, not the 1900s. Exactly. Anyways, it's just great. I mean, little things like that. It's just like, I gotta throw them in. So they have to, like, figuring out how to, and they were describing the clock radio, and just, there's just these really moments in there that are just, kids these days are really tack sharp, and they're quippy, and they're witty, and being able to incorporate all the things that the Gen Zs do, and like getting to throw in phrases like "okay, boomer," even though the foster parents are older millennials. I mean, everybody who's old, even if they're not actually boomers, but if you're not a Gen Z, then you're a boomer. Is basically how Gen Zs think, and so being able to put that stuff in there has been a real pleasure. But to throw those little things in there, you have to do research. Like, I have to spend the other day researching the alarm clock radio that was most ubiquitous during the before times, the olden days, the the antiques, and then I found the specific one, and then I had to, like, describe it. And my book isn't overly descriptive because I want people to feel like this could be happening in their house, in their school, in their small town. And so I'm not too over descriptive with either, like, if the floors have carpeting or, like, what's on the walls, except for when it's really, really relevant. Like, the character is feeling the texture of the couch because they're autistic and it's stimming. They don't know they're autistic. And so there's, like, behaviors that are very much things that autistic people do when they're stimming. But it's so little details about the environment only come up when it has an effect on the main character's ability to either cope in the situation, or if they're about to, like, have a meltdown because there's too much stimulation happening. And then things in the environment become so loud that that's all the character can notice. But they're also described in such a way that it could be anyone's house, anyone's doctor's office, anyone's school, anyone's classroom. It's anyone can put themselves. I also don't have any last names in the book because I don't want it to be. I want anybody to be able to put themselves into, like, feel what the character's feeling and not have things like a very white last name, making it so that the person of color who's reading it cannot feel themselves in that situation, because it is a very universal, well, I can't say it's completely universal because of some situations, but it's universal in that I'm writing in such a way that hopefully everybody who reads it is able to like really put themselves in these characters' places and not feel like they are confined to a specific place. So it's any generic house, any generic classroom, any generic doctor's office, any generic front yard under the stars type thing. Any generic movie theater, like movie theaters get brought up. It's also COVID time, so there's little, like, indicators that we're still in COVID. But it's not like, it's just like little background, little things that you notice to kind of add that time and place without forcing people into being in whatever, if that makes sense, more universal. And that's another thing that I really like about the perks of being a wallflower is that everybody has names, but nobody has last names. So, and rooms, rare, like all that stuff, it could be, and like it's very, more universal. Um, and that's not everybody's cup of tea. There's reviews like, well, I'd like to know, like what I need the room described so I can know where they're at. I'm like, well, no, because it's not about the room. It's about what's happening to the character. It could be in any room. It doesn't matter which room. I mean, the only time I think that it's important is if it has an effect. Like, if it actually makes a difference to the character, what something is like. Like, if the walls are painted a garish yellow, and it was overstimulating the character, and they could not escape. Like, there was nowhere for them to go, right? So... I'm enjoying it, and it's really funny because I don't know. I have a hard time assessing the quality of my writing, and so it's been interesting hearing other people's feedback on my writing because I worry about whether or not the person reading the character is able to relate and be empathetic because the character is neurodivergent and the reader is going to experience the world as close as I can possibly make it to how a neurodivergent experiences the world and how things can be fine and then all of a sudden something happens that makes them so completely overwhelmed that they feel like their molecules are about to fly apart and they're gonna lose molecular cohesion without actually causing a panic attack or like a meltdown in the reader. So it's finding that balance between creating a sympathetic character that I don't want people to sympathize with. I want them to actually empathize with, and and traumatizing the reader in the process, because that's not fun, right? Like I want the reader to have I want the reader to feel, but I don't want them to like. I want to eviscerate and gut the reader without scarring them, if that makes sense. I don't know if it does. I don't want anything to be gratuitous, I think is the thing. It's like one of the reasons why I couldn't watch Game of Thrones or even read the books is because the violence in that is gratuitous. It is there for shock. And really, it doesn't serve any purpose, really, some of it, other than to be shocking and like, oh, look at this repugnant thing that people are doing. And I'm not into that. I don't want to upset readers simply because I can. A happy medium, yes, exactly. So I did that. I did admin. I did some admin on Tuesday. Wait, it was... when did that happen? I think it was in the morning. And then the rest has been pretty much writing all week. And this was... milk delivery. Oh, another thing I have to do, I'm apologizing for now, even though I still have to add the subtitles to my July flip. I mean, the July flip is recorded. It's been recorded for 2 weeks now. I've just been so busy in this that this was tomorrow's dog food day. So 1, 2, 3. was it Thursday? Wow, I guess it was. It was Monday. So I gotta put that here too. So hold on. 1, 2, dog food making day, and dog food making day. Okay. What was I saying? Crud. I lost my train of thought here. Yeah, my video. July flip. I think Monday I'm going to, and I still have to film the whole entire flip for the days. I think Monday I'm at least going to, in the morning, I'm going to put this here. Finish July flip, and then record 6 months flip. So that's coming. I promise. It's late, but I have learned that even though it may be cool to have them done like within the first week of the month for the flips, since they're more there to give people ideas of like what they can do and just to like personal archival, it doesn't really seem to matter to people when I post those. They still get the same amount of views regardless. People still discover them via search the same ways and or subscribing. So I'm not really so worried about it too much anymore about when the timing goes up. So Monday, did I really write all day Monday? Yes, I did. I did a lot of writing this past week. Oh yeah, well, as I was saying, even though I had my break in there at 2 o'clock, there have been a few days, and I've been really actually proud of myself, that 2 o'clock would go around, my alarm would go off to have my, take my break to eventually, like, have lunch. But I meant, like, in the middle, and I'm not saying whenever they post is fine for them. So, yeah. So I'd be, like, in the middle of a paragraph, or just, I know that I'm, like, 200 words away from finishing the chapter. And so I will push back my break until, like, 2 o'clock. Or, I mean, until 3 o'clock or whatever. Even though it's scheduled for 2. And so that has been good as far as managing that stuff that typically tends to disappear from actually doing it. So even though it's been decided just for my own mental health that I'm just going to concentrate on writing until this book is done, because my brain just will have too much of a difficult time if I don't. I am still I'm stopping, like I'm able to stop during the day and take the breaks for food, even if it's not exactly at 2 o'clock, because when you're writing, it's not as easy to be like, well, I'm in the middle of the sentence, I'm just gonna stop now, and then come back to it, and then like you just have no, like where was I going, like why? So like sometimes you just have to write, because if you don't, you can't recapture. Like it's difficult to figure out again. Like, hey, where was I going? Like what exactly? At least for me, it is. Even with my outline, it's like, okay, what exactly was I going to do here? So I wrote and wrote. Do I need? Yes, I'm going to write it just to be. So where are we at? So we've got a little bit more time left. Right. And also, obviously, I mean, it might not be obvious if you didn't know. As I mentioned before, I had thought about switching colors for the second half of the year. But I decided against that, and what I'm probably going to do is when November rolls around, because you start in November, for the first, like, I'm going to continue planning in this with old, like, current color code through the end of the year in this. But once I get next year's Jibun Techo, because I've already decided this is what I'm going to be using for 2023 as well, I'm going to spend the first 2 months, like November, December, also like double recording everything in the new and like playing again with different color schemes and whatever to find new colors with these with the watercolor brush pens, and see if because there's some there's enough muted colors that I might find a new color scheme, so I'm not having to play this game of the alcohol brush pens bleeding through everything. God, that is a lot of writing. And not in a bad way. I'm very, very proud of the progress I made. Because if you were to have told me, like a year ago, even, that I would be writing a non-fiction, like, book, I always knew fiction. I'm working on fiction right now, not non-fiction. If you would have told me a year ago that I was going to be writing fiction, I'm looking for CG, I would have been like, no, that's never going to happen, because I don't... Do you know if the Prima colors grayscale are water-based? I didn't even know. Here, you know what? I'm going to check that in that last couple minutes here. I will check that real quick, because if they are, then I can also get that right now. This is live plan with me. Let's check that real quick in these last couple minutes here, because I don't know. I didn't even know they existed. So let me open up Amazon here and go to Prismacolor. Prismacolor, grayscale. Oops. Grayscale. I'm gonna grayscale. They're not even showing up in gray tone markers. No, those are alcohol. Prismacolor. They're not even showing up on Amazon Canada. Prismacolor Premier, marker art, brush double pen, fine art marker. It doesn't seem to be even a thing. Let me put marker here. On Amazon Canada. Those are alcohol, Prismacolor Premier, double-ended, fine art, chisel tip, gray, cool, but I don't want 12. Is there like another double-ended art markers, fine brush, 48? Those are not grayscale, but they seem muted. Nope, they're not muted. No, I do not know. Is it? I think for some reason, because every time I look for grayscale markers, they're all alcohol based, and I wonder if to have them this muted, like unsaturated, I should say, desaturated, they have to be alcohol based. I'm just wondering about that. They look too that it's alcohol based, unfortunately, yeah. And I'm just wondering if it has to do with what is necessary as far as delivery medium to make them desaturated. So um, yeah, so anyways, as I was saying, as we wrap this up, I'm actually very surprised that I am writing a fiction book. Because I was not sure that I had the capability, per se. And now that I'm 15,000 words into it, I definitely know that this is going to be a story. I'm not quite sure how good it is yet. I'm waiting for feedback from my critique partner, because my partner is biased, and they're like, "Oh, I love this." I'm like, "Yeah, but you like everything, all right? Nice, so I can't trust your opinion." Um, so, but that's that. Good luck, economic. Continuing with your plans. Next week we should talk about, like, if there's anything you might like, tips or stuff like that. Like, what does it mean to have to pack up your life? It's something that I kind of think about every now and then. Just the whole, if I were to have to move again. And Anomix is congratulating me again on one book down and another one on the way. Thank you. Good luck continuing to plan your moving and learning new languages and all that stress that comes into relocating to a new country. It was good chatting with you too. See you next weekend. For everybody who may be watching this on replay, join me next Saturday. Again, same time, 1 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. British Daylight Time, where we sit and we do this again on most Saturdays, except for when I'm sending secret messages that I have a migraine and have to cancel the stream. Thanks again, everybody, for watching this either today or on replay. Until next time, bye.